welcome back to BLOCKTV. This is Chain Breakers, where we talk to the people using blockchain to disrupt the traditional industries. Now today we are joined by Findora co-founder and Stanford cryptographer Ben Fisch. Ben, thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be here with you today. Thank you.
Okay, well Ben, now I shouldn't even have to say this, but you've constructed a new polynomial commitment scheme for univariate and multivariate polynomials over finite fields with logarithmic size evaluation proofs and verification time measured in the number of coefficients of the polynomial. Duh. Now, I don't understand a word I just read, so please explain to me what exactly you accomplished so that we can understand just how impressive it was.
This is a new technique for building zero-knowledge proofs that have practical size and verification times. Zero-knowledge proofs is the primary technology that enables selective disclosure of information. So it's a key privacy tool for blockchains. And before our most recent invention, it required a trusted setup. It required trust in some process to produce trusted parameters. And we found a way to do it without any trusted setup in a still practical way. So that's a major breakthrough for privacy technology.
So this could potentially change the game when it comes to zero-knowledge proofs.
Absolutely, yeah. If you may be aware of Zcash, which uses zero-knowledge proofs for anonymous payments, but Zcash famously required a major ceremony in order to establish the trusted parameters for their system. And it's still, there's a lot of people who don't necessarily trust that process, and it was inconvenient. And so this offers a way of doing fully private, anonymous transactions on a blockchain without any trust.
And so, what kind of practical use cases can this new technology enable out there?
Well, it starts with private, anonymous transactions on a blockchain, but it goes much beyond that. In fact, it's a tool for balancing privacy and auditability, or privacy and verifiability. So you can have transactions which are entirely encrypted, but you can still prove that they're compliant with regulation, or that you've paid your taxes appropriately, or that you're not engaging in certain types of criminal activity. So it's a very powerful tool for a balance of auditability and privacy.
Right, and hasn't this kind of been, an issue that's taken place in the cryptosphere until now, where different exchanges and even different platforms, they kind of wanted to protect the identities and the privacy of their users, but they still kind of had to adhere to KYC and AML standards in the eyes of the government. Does this have the potential to kind of fix that issue where you could have your cake and eat it too?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, you can have fully private transactions that prove that a certain credential is held. So you can do a KYC check over private transactions while only disclosing the information that is necessary for that KYC check. So it's a very powerful tool for the balance of those two things.
And on your website, it does list P2P lending as a potential use case. How exactly would that work?
So peer-to-peer lending would work almost the way it does today in the real world. It's just that the transactions would end up being executed on the blockchain. So one of the big issues that this solves is currently peer-to-peer lending platforms basically act like big pools of money that are managed very opaquely, allowing peer-to-peer lending funds to commit fraud, such as embezzling funds or running Ponzi schemes. If the peer-to-peer lending fund was operating over a blockchain, that all the users can audit what is happening. It would be truly peer-to-peer lending that can be verified, not to be committing any type of fraud.
Right, but because you said it is private and the users' identities aren't known, doesn't it still run the risk that users could take advantage of this to launder money?
It protects the users from the service provider. So you may have heard of the crisis in peer-to-peer lending in China, which is due to the fact that so many of these peer-to-peer lending funds are just fraudulent. They take money from investors and they don't actually lend it out. They're embezzling it, or they're running Ponzi schemes. So the privacy enables users to keep private the details of their loan while disclosing the necessary information for regulatory checks or KYC, et cetera, or pricing risk. But it allows the users to verify that the peer-to-peer lending platform is not stealing their money, because everything is publicly verifiable on the blockchain.
So, but still in this situation, there is an entity that does have access to the identity of the user, correct?
That's so. Can you repeat that again?
As in this system, in order to even adhere to KYC or AML, or to protect against money laundering, wouldn't there need to be an entity within this system that does have access to the identity of the user?
You may have, yes, you may have entities that have access to the identities of users, at least the necessary information that is provided. But that's not the major issue. The major issue is that peer-to-peer lending platforms swindle their users. And so the main benefit of using the blockchain is that users can verify that publicly, in a public way, that the lending platform is not stealing their money.
Mm-hmm. But could someone potentially take this technology and build a decentralized platform with it, and therefore it'd be a free-for-all for money launderers? There'd be no oversight, and they'd be able to trade, like you said, P2P in a trustless system, but with no oversight at all.
People could definitely use the technology for that purpose. In fact, the blockchain is fully decentralized. Service providers end up making a market and providing liquidity by matching lenders and borrowers. That could potentially be implemented in a fully decentralized way as well. That's on a service layer on top of the blockchain. In reality, many services today that make markets are required by regulation to do KYC checks. That is just a fact of the current infrastructure. What the blockchain provides is a way for everyone to audit the system, even if it is following the regulations and rules for different types of financial services and following the way that they work today. The main benefit is that users can now verify that a capital management fund or a peer-to-peer lending fund is not embezzling their money or stealing it in any way, because they can verify everything that is happening on the blockchain, while still preserving their privacy to the greatest extent possible from everyone else looking at the system.
And do you foresee that this technology will expand beyond this and really, change the way that the way we interact with financial institutions? For instance, will all, bank accounts, will all my money be tracked with my bank on this? The same with trading platforms and everything. Do you foresee this really becoming the standard when it comes to financial institutions?
I do. I think it's a no-brainer for finance to adopt this technology as a more transparent way of doing finance. I think it will also, it's also going to really change the way what financial institutions look like, because financial institutions are relied on for safeguarding trust and privacy, and the reputation is very important. But when you reduce their role really to just an algorithm, it becomes, opens up the potential for decentralized finance, for a much more open participatory system.
Mm-hmm. It seems like, a cure-all. It seems like there's simply, nothing could go wrong. You've worked on it, you built it. Tell me, what are its limitations right now? What are its drawbacks, if any? The
drawbacks and limitations are always in, making this very new cutting-edge technology as, highly performant as existing, battle-tested technology. So there are technological challenges, but we're overcoming them. But it's really, still a way to see how it works when it's fully integrated and everyone is using it. There's always things that you need to smooth out. The technological challenges are much, more difficult when dealing with blockchain technology than just traditional database management. So that's the main challenge.
Mm-hmm. So where is this technology at right now? Is it purely theoretical and you guys figured it out on paper, or is it actually you have running versions and it could be applied today?
No, it has a running. There's a running version. It's very much mature. We're starting to experiment with partners that we have. It's not a live system yet, but we're going to be working on first integrating with financial institutions in more private settings, and then eventually expand into a decentralized network.
Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, clearly you understand really what goes into coding blockchains. Which other blockchain project out there, that you look around, which one actually really impresses you, not necessarily on concept, but on a technical level, that you look at and you say, wow, these people really know what they're doing?
Yes. So, I mean, there's many, in fact. Well, to start with, of course, the classics, so Bitcoin, Ethereum, they all have fascinating components behind them. The Zcash was the first to really integrate zero-knowledge proofs in a powerful way. There are many, I mean, there's many blockchain projects that are really not doing anything that interesting. But from a technological perspective, the top 10 projects out there are always making groundbreaking progress in many interesting ways. And we're all working together as well and taking from each other.
Ben, you guys definitely, took blockchain technology a step forward today, with this big leap. Where do you see blockchain going tomorrow? What is the next big jump for blockchain technology?
The next big jump is in adoption, right? We have to move from blockchains just being adopted by crypto enthusiasts to being adopted by mainstream finance and applications. And so there's many institutions that are running, proof of concepts, et cetera. But I think the next major thing is to look at how China is using blockchain. I think the fact that China wants to put its digital currency on a blockchain and eventually make it accessible to the world on a decentralized blockchain is probably the biggest event to happen for blockchain. It's going to completely change the game in terms of adoption, and it's going to drive other institutions as well as governments around the world to follow in suit.
Mm-hmm. China's definitely taken a step forward. Do you feel though that the blockchain development there is hindered kind of by the politics of China? The fact that like if you're a developer, I don't really think you're going to go over to China right now to develop on that blockchain, are you?
I think actually China is very, very forward in terms of encouraging research in blockchains, and I don't think actually that the regulations would hinder developers too much. I mean, it may hinder early adoption. It may be that China will only be able to, or will only approve use of blockchains that are compliant with regulation there. But I think that's the point of the blockchains can really balance these needs, balance the needs of regulation in different settings, as well as the the openness of a blockchain and the privacy. I think that the fact that China is pursuing blockchain as a major backbone of their digital currency is going to inspire other governments around the world to follow in suit, where the regulatory requirements may not be as tight.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ben, thank you so much for all the hard work you're putting in to really push blockchain technology forward. And thank you for joining us today to help explain it to lay people like us. That was Chainbreakers. Stay current, stay informed, and stay tuned at BLOCKTV.com.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.